There we go. All right. Hello. My name's Bruce. Welcome to the channel. I've been away for a while. You may have noticed. You might not have. Either way, I'm back. The reason I'm away is because I'm not perfect. Heck, I wish I was. Just the way it is. Hey, if you like it, subscribe, and if you don't like it, subscribe. And if you want to call me names, please do so in the comments. Anyway, as you know, I like to talk about people, things, and ideas, and the ideas tend to be somewhat related to economics. There you go. Okay, today I'd like to talk about a specific person, and I would like to try to answer a question that someone asked. Okay, the person I'm going to talk about is, wow, when I was a kid, to say that I wasn't that great at catching things in baseball is an understatement. Really, never really got into it, until ever. Well, that's not quite true, but across the street from where my family business was, the community had erected a ball field, and that ball field at that time in the 1970s was very, very, very popular. And I used to go over and kind of watch, and the guys would be playing softball, fast pitch softball. It was kind of fun to watch. And I was a kid though, and I was I'm going to say, just for sake of exaggeration, I'll say that I was afraid of everybody. And I was not much when it came to catching balls. So anyway, I'd be there. One day, this guy who was approximately my age, and his name was Blair Whitty. Blair Whitty took it upon himself through an act of unwavering kindness to assist me with my ineptitude in catching. And I would like to extend this thank you to Mr. Blair Whitty and to Mr. Blair Whitty's family. I think his father was Morris Francis Whitty, and they were, like I said, I was kind of afraid of everybody, and at the beginning I was kind of afraid of this Blair guy too. But as it turns out, maybe wasn't at that time a tremendous judge of character. And this guy was a tremendous person, and he was patient and kind, and really he did everything that a human being should do for another human being. And I want to thank this guy really unequivocally. And now we're going to get to this idea of the question. Okay. Now what happened was, you might have remembered the pandemic, which actually is still going on. And in Canada, we were fortunate enough to have a bunch of things. But two of the things that we had was a thing called some relief, some Canadian Emergency Relief Benefit. And the other thing that we had, thankfully, was vaccines, and we still do. And the question came about because in Canada, if you recall our discussion of economics, I mentioned that there's three entities in our society. There's people like me, the individual, and you, the individual. Then there's the businesses, and there's government. Okay, people, what do we want to do, and what is our job? Our job is to maximize our utility, to have fun in every day as much as we possibly can, and to enjoy our lives. That's our actual job. Businesses, the firm, their job is to make money, be profitable. That's it. The objective of a firm is profit. It's no more than that. It's no less than that. It's very straightforward. And if you start to conflate the two, then it gets a little. It just gets confusing. If you're trying to run a business and not make money, well, you're not going to be in business very long, and you're failing at it's really your purpose. Okay. And then we have the government, and I said that, not I said, this is the answer in the book. Okay, the role of government is to maximize welfare in society. That's it. To maximize the well-being of everyone, and in doing so, there's going to be some competing interests, and they have different tools and mechanisms for doing that. One is regulation, enacting laws. Expenditure is a big lever of government. Another lever of government that they have is a thing called moral suasion, which is kind of like trying to convince someone to do the right thing because it's the right thing, and well, that's harder than it might sound. Okay, the question was, in our Canadian structure, and the United States is similar, and the world has similar things, and not every country, but in many countries, we have is the government, which is our elected representatives, and in Canada we have a prime minister. In the United States is a president, and so the Canada prime minister is the leader of the government, and then we have the members, and they table legislation, they vote on it, and such like this. But aside from that, there's a finite. The number of legislators in Canada, or in the federal government, is, let's just say it's a number like 300. I don't know the exact number, but it's a number like that. Okay, 300. Additional to that, we have other people who have other jobs, and they're also part of the government. Okay, they're servants of the people, and really, one of these people is the Auditor General. Okay, and what the Auditor General does is like an accountant, and they audit, which is begging the question, but begging the question means you're in the philosophical argumentative sense of the term begging the question, but the Auditor General examines government activity and government expenditure to assess it, whether it's in the public interest and it's a good use of resources. Okay, now if you follow back, I talked about resources. I'm going to talk about resources again in other videos and go on and on about this, but the Auditor General, so the role of them is to hold the feet to the fire. There's other people who hold the feet to the fire in Canada government. There's the media. There's the populace. Everyone has a viewpoint and an opinion, and is free and welcome to express it. And there's we have spectators. Spectators is good, but and we have spectators. So the media, we had the populace, we have Her Majesty, or now His Majesty, sorry, our loyal opposition, someone who's in their government chambers, and we debate legislation. Everyone can ask questions and things like this, and you can ask questions without fear of reprisal, which is, I'm mentioning that because that's an important feature that our government has. No reprisal. Okay, no reprisal. Now, okay, Auditor General, the media, citizens. Okay, so the Auditor General filed a report, made a study, performed an audit of the Canadian government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, the COVID-19 pandemic. And in tabling that, there was a discussion about the effectiveness of the CERB benefit, and there was discussion about the vaccines. Okay, and tabled the report, discussion of that. Now, next part. Remember, I talked about a question. So then, naturally, when that report is tabled, then the Canadian news organizations may report on it. It shows up on the television. It shows up in the radio. It shows up in the newspaper. It shows up in the internet areas. And there you go. And as writings. Okay. Now, one of those writings said that the Auditor General, or that there was waste. Use the word waste. Now, waste is a funny word because it has a sort of a pejorative undertone. Okay, you wasted that, but waste. Now, when newspaper articles or news stories are being written, there's actually usually a few people contribute. There's someone that's going to report. They're going to find facts. So quite often they'll have a writer who will take those facts and synthesize it into a story that's digestible by people that choose to read it or watch it on television. And in the case of newspapers or magazines, there's an art department and there's headline writers. So the people that write the headlines are not necessarily, sometimes it's true, but is not necessarily the people that write the stories. Okay, now this headline used the word waste. And then I made a comment on the headline, and I said that we're gonna get to the hard brass facts of this. The headline, hey, here's the headline. The headline read, Canada set to waste $1 billion worth of COVID-19 vaccines. All right. I commented and I said that the headline was misleading, especially in the context of it being on this broader story of the Auditor General investigating and reporting on the federal government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I said the headline is it's misleading and it's a poor depiction of facts. All right. Now, someone asked a question, and they said, "Can you explain, please?" Now, okay, my capacity for typing these days is not as strong as I would like it. So what I thought I would do is I would attempt to explain that in this medium. Okay. First of all, the role of the government is to maximize the well-being in society. Now, if you imagine, go back in time to when the pandemic was, say, in its I don't want to say in its peak, but it was certainly in the forefront. And what was happening was there were a tremendous number of deaths each day, and people sick. And in response, in absence of any response, what we had was physical distancing and hand washing and masks. Okay, so then we had businesses closed, we had streets bare, we had people experiencing hardship, and those are people that didn't get sick. Then we had the people that got sick and their families. They were not able to visit loved ones in care homes, and then you had really unimagined previously unimaginable consequences, where you had scores of fatalities in some of these care homes, and you may recall the headlines from Quebec, or the stories, and it was just not good. So the government's job is to maximize the well-being in society, use the tools at their disposal to have the most amount of happiness that we can possibly have in our society. Okay, and I talked about this in some detail. I talked about how governments actually don't spend money, and how the production possibility curve, and this idea of what do we have and what do we know, and the use of resources, and all this stuff. But here is brass tacks. I mean, this was a full-on, this was a serious occurrence. This was a crisis, and before, let's take the clock back to January 1st, 2019. If you stopped someone in the street and said that 1,000 Canadians a day were going to be dying from some disease that we had not heard of previously, they think you're writing a science fiction story. Okay, now you go back to, say April 2020. You go back to September 2020, and thankfully, thank you, Carrie Carrilco. I talked about her in a previous video, but there's vaccines in the offing. Okay, so we have, and the government's response was manifold, but two folds happened. One was this idea of easing the financial strain and the day-to-day worry of Canadians, and there was many millions of Canadians that benefited from the Canadian Emergency Relief Benefit. And when that was rolled out and implemented, we knew full well, I mean, the government, meaning the legislators, meaning the civil servants, heck, meaning the opposition, or Majesty's Lawyers, everybody knew full well, you know what, this is not going to be perfect. This response is not perfect. It's not a magic bullet. It's not going to solve everything. But what it's going to do is it's going to ameliorate the hardship that people are going to experience by when they can't pay their rent, when they can't go to work, when their jobs are canceled, when the servers aren't working and getting, you follow, okay? Everybody knew that was not going to be perfect. So the government is issuing people with a benefit, which means in form of a payment, and then there was a measure of oversight, but it wasn't great. It was relying on the goodwill of Canadians to exercise that with integrity, which largely is what happened. And there's going to be a few bad apples, but on balance, great. Okay. Now, I invite you to go back and watch all the other videos where I talk about how the government and money is a funny thing, and money is a funny thing, and resources is a funny thing, and money in society is to the individual. Money is like an abstract interface with resource. Okay, we are the way a household manages finances, and the way a government that has progressive taxation and a responsibility to maximize well-being, the way that government, the money to the government it's not the same. Okay, and I can do like 5 hours on why that's true, but I'm gonna not, because it gets a little bit crusty. Okay, now let's talk about this. Talk about $1 billion worth of COVID-19 vaccines going to quote said they're going to be destroyed or discarded or something because they have not been used. All right, so $1 billion worth. That's like I don't even know. Okay, is that 1 million doses? No, 1 million doses would be $1,000 a dose. Well, it's like 10 million doses, some number. But since what the COVID-19 vaccine allowed for is the resumption of our economy, and when you can have the economy completely halted, essentially, really, well, construction has a separate deal, but completely halted, then you go, well, what's it worth to get that going again? Really, how much water can we pour on this fire? What's enough? The answer is, who knows, right? Is it going to work? Who knows, right? Is it going to get approved? Well, we're confident. I mean, science being what it is, thankfully, confident. But timeline, a little bit vague. So could it be, which horse are we going to bet on? We have 10 or more horses in the race. Are we going to bet on this one, or heck, let's bet on them all? And then let's have a thing where we say, well, what if we wind up with too much? Well, if we wind up with too much, well, Canada is a wealthy country, and we can share, or we can donate to the rest of the world. Okay, well, there's a plan. Problem with that plan is that was the same plan lots of people had, and then there's the logistical matter of getting the vaccines from Canada to wherever they have to be. You have to account for cold storage. You have to account for the simple transportation. You have to account for the administration. I mean, the putting the jabs into the arms, as the saying go. That's a tough one. So there you go. So you're going to write a headline, and you want people to get a grab, to buy the paper. You might use that word waste because you're selling papers, but really a different way to write the headline is to say that the Canadian government, and when I say the government, I mean everybody. I mean the Prime Minister, I mean the Leader of the Opposition, I mean Anita Nan, the Minister responsible for procurement, I mean everybody. Okay, I mean Canada's Chief Medical Officer of Health, the doctors, everyone, right? You write and say that the Canadian government's response to COVID was exemplary, outstanding. And if you want to talk about what outstanding means, you say, well, what was the per capita death rate of COVID in Canada? What is that? What is the per capita death rate of COVID in the United States, Brazil, Russia, India, Tajikistan? Okay. And there's an answer to that question. The answer is that Canada did about 10 times better than the other guys. And I'm sitting here, and there's an expression, I'm fat and happy. Um, both of those things are true to various extents, but that's it. Now, the person that asked that question, thank you very much. I thought it was a great question. And I understand that this explanation is not, it's not like, well, why is 2 + 2 4? It's because 2 + 2 is, well, 2 is like 1 + 1. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, you get to 4. Well, that's a straight up one. This one has some vagary associated with it. I get it. And it's asking for a leap of faith in some of these issues about government and the way the economy works and the way government works, and some broader macroeconomic ideas that are true but not intuitively obvious. I get it. Heck, I'm here doing my best, and we all are. And you know who's doing their best? It was Canadians and the Canadian government, and and you want to know who else is doing their best, and our healthcare system. When you're sending your kid off to elementary school, you might not think with a as you're packing their lunch, that the teacher and the principal and the school crossing guard are part of our healthcare system, but they are. And one of the reasons why Canada has a wonderful healthcare system is because we have a fabulously educated populace. Okay, base level education is immense, and I'd like to thank all those people too. Okay, and heck, I'm going to thank the dog walkers, because the dogs needed to get walked. It was a thing, and the great thing about, there's an expression, the great thing about, but the reality is that one of the reasons why Canada has functioned as well as we have functioned with respect to the pandemic is a broad cooperation, okay? A broad cooperation, and the fact that we have true freedoms, and the test of those freedoms was even made clear when some people that didn't quite get it decided to basically invade Ottawa and hold people hostage for essentially a month. But that was an expression of freedom. You try that in some other countries. All right, now, like I said, you can subscribe, you can like, you can comment, you can do whatever you want. I'm doing my best to do this, and I, the why of it. The why of it is because, I came to realization that I should talk more to anybody. So, I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to you. Hopefully we're having a conversation, and I hope that you find this somehow entertaining and maybe a little bit useful. All right? That's it. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Oh, wait a second. I'm gonna do a little drawing here to say that Canada, I don't know if you can see this or not, but that's it. That's my mark. I did an audit of Canada's response to the pandemic, and that's what I'm giving us. Okay. If you don't think that's correct, then I encourage you to leave a comment. Tell me why I'm wrong. Thank you. Bye now.